Time now for Michigan's #1 outdoor radio show, Mike Avery's Outdoor Magazine. Mike Avery has covered the outdoors in Michigan for more than 4 decades, and that tradition continues today. Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Jay's Sporting Goods, the Eider Insurance Group, Angler Quest Pontoons and Polar Craft Boats, the Forward Corporation, Primal Tree Stands, Security Credit Union, Garber Chevrolet, Brenton USA Hunting Rifles, and by Michigan Brand Meats. Now, here's Mike Avery.
Well, thank you, Kent Hunter, for that introduction, and welcome to another edition of the Outdoor Magazine show right here on the Outdoor Magazine Radio Network. More than 30 stations here in the great state of Michigan. I am here every week for 3 hours talking about the outdoors, the history and tradition of the outdoor lifestyle here in the great state of Michigan. Occasionally, we venture beyond our state. Oftentimes, as is the case with this week's show, I'll be talking with a Michigan person who took an out-of-state hunting adventure. That's coming up here shortly after the break. But first, what else is going on? It is Memorial Weekend. Again, I'm shaking my head. I don't know how it got to be Memorial Weekend. I mean, it feels like it was just Easter. It was just the New Year, and then it was Easter, and now it's Memorial Day, and then it'll be 4th of July, and it's crazy, isn't it? Time does indeed fly. Memorial Weekend tends to be the unofficial kickoff of the summertime season, and I think that's wonderful. It's a time to hit the road, to hit the water, to hit the backyard, to fire up the grill. The reason Memorial Weekend, Memorial Day is around is to remember those who died in service of our country. They gave the ultimate sacrifice. It's a cliche, but you think about it. Those people left the safety and security of their home, went to some godforsaken part of the world so we could do what we want on Memorial Weekend, just as an example. And they didn't come home. So, I think that they deserve that we should honor them this weekend. So just keep that in mind, please. Now, Memorial Day also, though, has kind of morphed into something more. It's kind of a time to remember everyone who has passed on, whether they were in the service or not. That's the unofficial, right? That's kind of what it's become to be. Which gets me thinking about my dad. And always, he's gone now, but when he was here and healthy, and that's been a few years, our summer season, our Memorial Weekend, was always spent at the Muskegon State Park. We would camp there at the park. It had a couple of real nice campsites right on the water, right down by the boat launch. And we would fish kings for the weekend to kick off the summertime season. And then we spent the rest of the summer fishing kings, probably 3, if not 4 weekends a month, and then a 2-week vacation at the beginning of August, and it was spent chasing Lake Michigan salmon and trout. And man, it was fun, it was wonderful, and it was just, if you have not caught a big water salmon, especially a king, I would encourage you, to book a charter and give it a try. It is very, very addicting. When you get a 15, 20-pound fish on the end of your line and they fight, it's absolutely wonderful. Now, these days, I don't fish salmon anymore. I will admit I do miss it, but when I've got Saginaw Bay in my backyard, I've turned into one of those walleye guys. I was getting a bit concerned because I don't have a boat right now as we're recording the show, an Angler Quest. And Brad Dupuis, Mr. Angler Quest himself at Apex Marine, said, Mike, your boat's not going to be done for a couple of weeks. And I'm thinking, oh boy. To get started on the summertime walleye fishing in the middle of June, that's kind of a late start. Plus, we got Walleye for Warriors event coming up, and I have some trips that I needed to get people out in the water, and I was starting to get nervous. So Brad called me the other day, and he said, guess what? The bad news is your boat's still not going to be ready for 2 weeks. Oh, no. He said, the good news is we have a boat you can use. And it's kind of a prototype boat. If I remember what he was telling me, it's kind of one of the first models that they put together that is the new 2022 model year. So he said it's a little rough. He said, there are some things you'll see that aren't quite finished yet, and, it's a prototype, but it floats, and you can fish. And I said, sign me up. I will be happy to take you up on that. Thank you very much, Brad Dupuy. And that's good. I'm glad that I've got a boat, because I'm done turkey hunting. I admit it. I'm done. After too many hours sitting in a blind and not seeing a bird and not hearing a bird, I'm a pretty patient guy. And if there is any chance at all that I can get a chance at a turkey or a bear or a deer, I'll sit it out. But if I'm not seeing them, if I'm not hearing them, if I'm not seeing any signs of them, it's pretty hard, especially with turkey hunting. If I hear birds gobble, I can call them in for the most part. Or at least I know that they are there and I'm willing to put the time in. But when there's absolutely no sign of them around, I just can't do it. So I think I'm done. And now that's good, because the season's, even as we're sitting here in the studio, is basically over. There's a few more days. My season goes through the 31st. But it was just an interesting year. I mean, it's the first time that I can remember that I didn't get a bird or even get a chance at a bird. I only saw 2 longbeards while I was hunting this season, and I hunted hard for 5 weeks. Now, granted, it was on the same property. I did not pick up and move. If I would have done that, yes, I suspect things would have been different, but this is so close to my house. I can bounce over there and bounce back, and there have been birds there in the past, and I have been successful, and maybe I'm hunting memories, yada, yada, yada. I get it. But the fact remains that on that piece of property and the adjoining properties and a lot of other people that I've talked to say the same thing. The birds just are not there, and the birds that are there are not gobbling. Now, of course, as I said last week, there are exceptions to that. There are pockets across the state where there are a bunch of vocal birds, but it is interesting, and not in a positive way. Just a reminder, speaking of critters, that you only have a few more days to apply for your Michigan bear or elk tag. Put those applications in now. You can do it at any license agent. I find it easier just to go to the website and do it online, michigan.gov/DNR, michigan.gov/DNR. Sign up for your bear and elk tag. Doesn't mean you're going to get it. You are signing up for a chance at a tag. You are filling out an application for a tag. Personally, I will put in for a bull only. Well, it's an either sex, but it's basically bull-only elk tag. And I will not get it, and I know I will not get it, but I'm still going to do it. And I will put in for a 3rd season. Well, by the time you hear the show, I will have put in for a 3rd season in the Newberry district, and I'll be hunting with Johnny Bowler. And I'm thinking this year that I think I'm going to go to Ontario with my crossbow in August. And maybe if I feel like it, take a bear there, and I probably will, because we need some bear brats because the freezer's getting empty. But when I come back to Michigan and hunt at the end of September with Johnny, I'm seriously thinking about using my Brenton USA AR-style hunting rifle in a .350 Legend caliber for a couple of reasons. Number one, of all the bears I've ever taken, every one has been with a bow. And it's cool, and I love it, and it's up close, and it's personal. So I think I would like the experience of bear hunting with a gun. And I think it would be cool to shoot my first Michigan bear with a Michigan-made gun. So we'll see. I'm looking forward to that. Speaking of guns, my grandson Carter, who is shooting on the local high school trap team, and he's using my grandpa's 60-year-old Remington Model 58 semi-auto 20 gauge. And he was on the range last week, right in the middle of a round, and his firing pin, it didn't seize up. It was kind of dirty, and it wouldn't come forward hard enough to hit the primer and make the shell go off. And he was having a really good round too. So he borrowed one of his buddy's guns. I took my grandpa's gun aside and just manipulated it and worked it a little bit and got it loosened up and got it moving again. He was able to finish the round. By the way, this is his best round ever, 36 out of 50 birds, which is, I think, pretty good for a kid who's never shot a shotgun before 6 weeks ago. So I took that gun over to Duncan's in Bay City because they've got some great gunsmiths. And I said, guys, will you take a look at this? Just clean it up. Open it up, clean it up, make sure everything's okay, get it all lubed up, and bring it back to life. And they did. And it runs beautifully now. It's like a brand new gun, except it's better because it's 60 years old and it's got history. And to see him shooting that gun on the trap range is just so cool to know that it was my grandpa's gun. So how cool is that? Coming up on this week's Outdoor Magazine show here after the break, speaking of guns, I'm going to talk with Mike King, who is the owner of Brenton USA AR-style hunting rifles. He just got back. He's a Michigan guy, but he just got back from a wild, crazy hunting adventure in Alaska for brown bear. We want to talk about that. Also, we'll talk about a Wednesday night live that we are going to do at the Brenton USA factory in Lansing the evening of June 8th at 7 o'clock. Then Nick Buggia of the Michigan Wildlife Council wraps up the hour. In hour number 2, Jason Horton of the Michigan Bowfishing Association talks about what we commonly call carp shooting. And then Randy Clermont of the DNR on Atlantic salmon, trout and salmon in Lake Huron, and a follow-up on those discolored brown hard-fleshed walleye. Is it the big deal that some people, including the media, are making it out to be? And finally, in hour number 3, we'll talk with Richard P. Smith, who says if UP deer hunters knew what was going on, he said they would be up in arms, figuratively. And we'll wrap it all up with wild game chef extraordinaire Dave MInar. So it's a busy show. I'm glad you're with us right here on Outdoor Magazine. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in St. Joe on WSJM 94.9 FM. On the other side of the state in Tawas, WIOS 1480 AM, 106.9 FM. And you can hear us in Traverse City on WTCM 580 AM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine brought to you by Rapid River Knives. You know that I have a Rapid River knife in my pocket right now, as I always do. I love to use Michigan-made products, and Rapid River are some of the best. Handmade by craftsmen in the UP at their plant just outside Rapid River. Check out their website, rapidriverknifeworks.us, rapidriverknifeworks.us, and you'll see what I'm talking about. They make folding knives like I have right now. They make fillet knives. They make skinning knives. They even make kitchen utensils. They do great work. If you get a chance, stop by their showroom just outside Rapid River, and you'll see what I mean. Again, the website, rapidriverknifeworks.us, rapidriverknifeworks.us. Speaking of Michigan-based companies, I'm real glad to be working with Brenton USA hunting rifles, AR-style hunting rifles. Their website, brentonusa.com, brentonusa.com. Their owner, Mike King, is a hardcore hunter. And he spends a lot of time hunting here in the great state of Michigan, but he just got back from an Alaskan adventure, and I wanted to bring him on to talk about that and more. Mike King, welcome back to the show. How are you?
Doing great, Mike.
Oh, we lost you a little bit. Mike, you there? Mike, you there?
Here, can you hear me?
It's really bad. You're breaking up, going in and out real bad.
Okay, sorry about that.
There we go. That's better. So how are you, Mike?
I'm doing great. Glad to be here, Mike.
Well, listen, a real pleasure. Tell me where you were and what you were doing.
Well, I was in the Alaskan Peninsula, right in the Aleutian Islands. After about 6 flights, got there and got dropped off in a bush plane for 10 days. Slept in the tent out in the middle of King Salmon Valley and chased the brown bear with a stick and string for the better part of that time, and wound up enough to on a big.
Mike, we're losing. It's bad, Mike. I can't even tell what you're saying. I apologize for that.
Interesting.
Yeah, interesting and frustrating at the same time.
Yeah, sorry about that, Mike.
No, that's all right. Listen, you were in Alaska after a brown bear. Now, what is a brown bear? Is a grizzly? I mean, what's the distinction there, Mike?
Yeah, so it's just where they live. So grizzlies are basically inland brown bears. It's all the proximity to the coast. So I was hunting near the Alaskan coast, and those are considered coastal brown bears.
Well, and by the coast, because they feed on fish in such a high-protein diet, don't they tend to get bigger down there?
They are the largest breed of bear, yeah. The brown bear, equivalent to a 150-inch whitetail. You shoot a 10-foot squared-out brown bear. They're 15 to 20-year-old animals that, apex predator, top of the food chain, big boys.
How do you put together a trip like this? Is something you do on a whim, or is this something that takes years to in the process, in the progress?
Yeah, no, this was a 5-year plan. I've 5-year kind of for I put in for all kinds of things. And this was a bucket lister for me. And, I had on the radar just about 5 years ago, pre-COVID. COVID got in the way a little bit there, and then was able to finally get some time to do it this year.
Mike, can we call you right back? I don't think it's going to make a difference. Can we call you right back, though, and see if we can get a better signal here?
Yeah, I'm sorry about that.
Yeah, don't worry about it. All right, Charlie, go ahead and take care of that. We're talking with Mike King, who is the owner of Brenton USA hunting rifles, AR-style hunting rifles. The website is brentonusa.com. That's brentonusa.com. Mike was on a brown bear hunting adventure in Alaska. Now, even though he owns a hunting rifle company, he started out the hunt with a bow. Can you imagine the type of situation you put you in when you're talking about hunting the world's biggest bears with a bow? I think Mike's back with us now to give that another try. All right, we're working on it, Charlie. All right, Mike, let's do it again. How you doing?
I'm good.
Maybe our mojo worked. So here's the part that I find interesting. Why did you start this hunt with a bow? Are you crazy or an adrenaline junkie?
I'd say yes and yes. No, I have a goal. I'd like to, successfully harvest the North American 29 with archery equipment, and so this would have been number 19 on the list. Unfortunately, I did not harvest this bear with a bow. I did it with a rifle, but that's what it is. I have a life plan to do that, and hope to be able to successfully achieve that before they put me in the ground.
So were you not able to get close enough for the shot, or he just didn't give you the shot with a bow, or what? These bears this time of year are interested in one thing, and it's a lady. And so they're really aggressive, and all the encounters I had with a bow just were not safe to release an arrow. And so I just elected to get my first brown bear with a rifle. And I think fall brown bears are a little different because they're interested in salmon, not ladies, and they're not real aggressive. So it'd be a different story in the fall, but I just elected to play it safe. I had a 50-foot encounter where, I was bluff charged about 5 times. Ooh.
So it was enough for me to kind of say, okay, let's put the stick and string down. They know you're there, and let's move on.
Mike, you're a big, strong, tough guy. You played in the NFL. What was it like to get charged by a brown bear?
It was a lot different than getting charged by anything else I've been charged by, I'll tell you that. It definitely makes you feel small real fast.
Wow. So, all right. So you had your rifle with you because, you knew that might be an option. What size gun does it take to take down a bear of that size?
Everybody I've talked to, and there's a lot of opinion on this, but you usually want a 240 or bigger grain cartridge. Caliber's not necessarily the important part. It's having enough energy when you hit the animal. I used a 375 H&H, which is a safari caliber weapon, an elephant gun, really. But a lot of guys use 300s with 220 grain or bigger partitions, something that will expand when it makes contact.
So how many days were you hunting before you had this successful encounter? And how many bears did you have encounters with?
We had encounters with over 30 bears, and they were just coming out of the den. So there's this time of year in Alaska, especially in the peninsula, the lows were 11 degrees at night, and the highs, I don't think it got above 50 in the middle of any day. And we were covered with 6 inches of snow twice. So the bears were just really coming out of the den the first few days of the hunt. It took me 10 days. So, we started hunting May the 10th, and it took me 10 days to successfully get the deal done. I spent 11 days in the bush, and we hiked over 85 miles in that time period.
Wow.
To get it done.
So the one that you took, describe that hunt for me, that day.
Yeah, well, it was actually after several really close encounters with bears that were either just not what I was looking for from a size and age class, or a bear that was, I had encounters where bears had already rubbed their hides off. This time of year, they come out of the den with fleas, so they scratch their fur off, and you don't want a bear like that. And I really wanted a 10-foot tall bear. I mean, that's kind of like the age class and the size that, if you're going to go spend the time and energy to do this, you want something very representative. So we'd watched a bear come over the top of a mountain, and I mean the very top, 6,000 feet type climb, and you're looking at these things in the snow, and you're trying to guess where they come down the mountain in your valley. And it was about a 4 or 5 mile stretch to get to where that we thought this bear was going to actually cross the valley. So me and I had an Amish guide of all things. Real good guy, Lynn. I give a shout out to Lynn here. Lynn and I sprinted down the valley, and if you've ever been to Alaska, you're running on a sponge.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm a 300-pound man, as you know, Mike. Every step I took, I was burying myself up to my shins. So if you can imagine a couple bumbling idiots running across this valley, trying to get to the base of the mountain before the bear crosses down into a riverbed. To kind of get a shot, we covered that ground in about 40 minutes, which was not an easy feat. So we get there in Alaska. It doesn't get dark until about 2 a.m. this time of year. So you're able to hunt right up until then. I think I got into position where we cut that bear off after it chased a moose. Actually, of all things, it chased a moose out into the valley. It beat us, and the wind was blowing right at the bear, and the bear got our wind, and then he started coming at us. So we knew he was interested in food, and we were it probably. And so he was coming up the valley. We crossed a riverbed, and we're dripping wet from running across this thing. And here he is. He stands up maybe 100 yards away, trying to smell us. And then we lose him because once he went back on all fours, he's shorter than the brush that we were in. And so we knew we were either done for the night because he took off, or we were going to have a close contact encounter with him because he was coming our way still. So I said, look, let's just get to something high. We got as high as we could up the side of this draw. And then 50 feet away, this bear stands up looking right at us. And I said, okay, that's my bear.
50 feet.
50 feet, And he was just moseying in to check us out, and was able to put a good shot on the bear, and then he disappeared again, and it got fun again there in the moonlight.
Hang tight, Mike. I got to take a break. I want to finish up the rest of the story and then talk about an event we have coming up. We're talking with Mike King, who is the owner of Brenton USA Hunting Rifles. The website, BrentonUSA.com, BrentonUSA.com. A maker of AR-style hunting rifles. You've heard me talk about him here on the show. So we'll talk to Mike about that. And did he use one of his guns or something else, and why? And again, promote the event we have coming up Tuesday, June 8th, a Wednesday night live at the Brenton USA factory in Lansing. That's coming up on a Wednesday night live. Again, Mike King of Brenton USA, BrentonUSA.com here on Outdoor Magazine. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Alpena on WZTK 105.7 FM. You can hear us in Battle Creek on WBCK 95.3 FM. And let's go north of the bridge to Marquette, WDMJ 1320 AM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by the Linwood Beach Marina and Campground. Linwood Beach can be your year-round Saginaw Bay fishing destination and your mid-Michigan tracker and Angler Quest headquarters. You know I love that. And hopefully, this weekend sometime, I will be at Linwood Beach Marina to grab that loaner boat, that loaner Angler Quest, that I can hopefully get back out on the water of Saginaw Bay. Linwood Beach, a great jumping-off place for Saginaw Bay walleye fishing, Saginaw Bay perch fishing, Saginaw Bay waterfowl hunting, Saginaw Bay bass fishing, you name it, and a great campground, great boat launch, great people. Check them out online at linwoodbeachmarina.com, linwoodbeachmarina.com. Speaking of great people, I'm working with the folks from Brenton, USA, AR-style hunting rifles. Mike King is the guy who owns the company. He just got back from a brown bear hunting adventure in Alaska. Mike, you got this bear at 50 feet. You made your shot. Then what?
Then the reality of having to go track a 900-pound brown bear became front and center for us.
Oh man!
Yeah. So the terrain we were in, as I mentioned, was real spongy and wet. And the brush that we were in, was 6 foot tall. So you're walking through a labyrinth of this buckbrush. Although it doesn't have any vegetation on it. You're working hard to get through it, and you're not quiet at all. So we knew I'd made a good shot on this bear, but we weren't quite sure where this bear went after I made the shot. If it dropped, if it ran, if it was laying there waiting for us, or what. And the moon's rising, time's ticking, and it's not something we want to be doing with headlamps. So we carefully assessed our situation and started moving toward where that bear was. And talk about a hairy experience is not knowing what you're walking in on in that labyrinth of brush. With a bear that was clearly interested in you. The good news is, we walked up on this bear. It was gone. It was a good shot. It didn't run, which is very rare.
Yeah.
But it was definitely that experience. That was one of the probably longest half hours of my life.
Well, congratulations on a great hunt. I'm thinking, though, at a 375 H&H, you weren't able to use one of your Brenton USA hunting rifles, were you?
I wasn't. A couple reasons, and I did want to take our 450 up there, but I traveled through Canada, and Canada has outlawed the AR style rifle. So traveling through Canada with an AR rifle wasn't allowable. I could have brought one of our rifles and did the Seattle to Anchorage and just dodged Canada. But ultimately, you want a Magnum cartridge. The AR style rifles are not conducive to Magnum style cartridges. So I just elected to take the easy route and used a good old faithful gun that I had. And, that was plan B, as you know. So plan B wasn't to use a gun. So it didn't really bother me that I didn't use a Brenton. But at the end of the day, it was a plan B, not plan A with the bow.
Well, again, congrats on a great trip. I'm excited because I've got one of your Brenton 350 Legends on order, and I understand it's done. And I'm going to get a chance to finally see that gun during a Wednesday night live that we are going to do at your factory Wednesday evening, June 8th, right, Mike?
That's right. Yeah, we're excited. She's sitting there waiting for you. We've got the break in case of emergency glass around her. She's waiting for you.
Well, I will admit I have dreamt about her a little bit. I'm looking forward to meeting her. But tell me a little bit about Brenton. I mean, we had you on the show. Oh, it's been a while now, but a Michigan-made company, AR-style hunting rifles. And I don't know, the more I investigate this, ARs just make a great hunting rifle that people are starting to discover now, I think.
Yeah, it's something that's, both a love and a passion, but something that we think fills a void out there for people that really appreciate the ability to have great downrange accuracy with, no risk on your follow-up when it comes to keeping your eyes on the scope. In Michigan, as you know, like many other states, have legalized the use of a straight wall cartridge as an alternate to the shotgun. And, shotguns, we all love them. They've been great to us, but, having the ability to shoot 250 to 300 yards with a rifle, a straight wall cartridge accurately, that gives a hunter, especially a hunter in Michigan, a lot of advantages. And we just feel like this AR platform, with the modifications we've made to it, really help a hunter. And notice I'm not saying, a home defender or combat or any tactical. I mean, we love those guns too, but this gun was built for hunters by hunters. And it, we think with our 11 chambers, we offer, as you've said, everything from a 204 up to the 450. You've got a 350 on order.
And with that, Mike, listen, I unfortunately have to cut you off because I'm out of time.
Sure.
This event will be Wednesday night, June 8th, from the Brenton, USA plant on my social media outlets at 7 o'clock. The website, BrentonUSA.com, BrentonUSA.com. And if you want to save $100 on a Brenton rifle, use the promo code Avery at that website, BrentonUSA.com. Congrats, Mike King. I will post a picture of that big brown bear on my Facebook page so you can see it, folks. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Sandusky on WMIC, 660 AM, 95.3 FM. You can hear us in Port Huron on WPHM, 1380 AM. And in the Sioux on News Talk, 1400 WKNW. This segment of Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by VersaSkins. Just change your skin for the season you're in. Michigan-based VersaSkins, a great concept. Paul Perone, the company owner, said, look, there's no reason to spend all this money on your different hunting camo, right? Buy one good quality set of gear and then get some outer skins to change your camo pattern. You snap on and zip on or off an outer skin. It takes maybe a minute, maybe a minute and a half, and you're good to go. Check out their website, versaskins.com. That's versaskins.com. And you will see what I mean. Just change your skin for the season you're in at versaskins.com. While you are online, my website, MikeAveryOutdoors.com, and then head on over to hereformywildlife.org. Hereformyoutdoors.org. Hereformyoutdoors.org is the website of the Michigan Wildlife Council. Nick Buggia, member of that council, and an avid outdoorsman as well, joins us now on the Outdoor Magazine phone line. Nick, welcome back. How are you?
Good. Thanks for having me on again.
Hey, listen, it's always a pleasure. What's going on in your world right now? I mean, I know you're an avid bird hunter. You can't be bird hunting right now. Are you fishing? What are you doing, Nick?
Yeah, I'm trying to get out on the water to go fishing. I actually just started a new job, so I've been a little busy with that, but preparing to get out on the water.
Yeah.
I hope.
Well, and this came up the last time you were with us, too. I mean, I love the Michigan Wildlife Council and your activities there, but you're involved in conservation on more of a national scale, too, aren't you?
Yeah. So last time we talked, I was with an organization called the Congressional Sportsman Foundation. And you can, we got some breaking news for your show. I just started a new job with the Rough Grouse Society.
Oh, okay. So, well, congrats.
Working with chapters there, and it's been good.
Well, good. I'm glad to hear that. They will benefit from your services and your expertise. What about the Michigan Wildlife Council? How are things going there?
Yeah, so our last two surveys have been really, really positive, and this year's and I guess technically last year's and the years before have been really positive and shown a lot of good growth. The one area in the state that we'd like to kind of bring those numbers up a little bit is in southeast Michigan. So this year, we're really just focusing on Southeast Michigan to see if we can bring those numbers up. Before, we kind of had a statewide campaign, and we're really reaching out to folks across the state. We're still going to be doing, some messaging and events and stuff to touch base statewide, but we're really just kind of throwing it all at Southeast Michigan to see if we can move up those numbers. But, from our last survey, 65% of Michiganders understand that, wildlife management is necessary to have healthy wildlife populations. When we started the campaign, that was only 39%.
Wow.
So that's almost doubled. And even in Southeast Michigan, we have positive news. About 70% of Metro Detroit residents now can correctly identify that hunting and fishing licenses are a source of wildlife funding. And, across the state, we're either at the national average for acceptance of hunting and fishing or we surpass that. So in the state, we've got 83% of the population approves of hunting and about 90% approve of fishing. We also introduced Annette last year, who was sort of our spokeswoman. We're really focusing her, trying to get her in venues and stuff in Southeast Michigan. What we heard was basically people want to see her where hunters and anglers are. So last year we had a spokeswoman. She was, talking about hunting and fishing in diners and people's living rooms, at restaurants and at Jay's Sporting Goods. And so what we're going to do this year is try to kind of take her out of those locations and put her in the woods and in the water. Other things we heard about, we had over Thanksgiving, we had DNR biologists kind of come and talk about turkeys and how successful that reintroduction was, and people really, really seem to like that. So we're going to try to provide more opportunities for biologists to kind of talk about what they do every day and the success stories they've worked on. So that's what we've been up to. I think a lot of positive news, a little different direction than we've headed in, but I think I think being able to show our spokeswoman in the field and on the water for the first time, I think that's a positive. Actually participating in some of the activities we're talking about here.
Well, Nick, listen,
I DNR involved.
Well, and I appreciate what you're saying. Just before we let you go, here for mioutdoors.org, I'll make this comment, an editorial comment. People might say, well, why do we care about Southeast Michigan? If they don't like what we're doing, who cares? But that's where the bulk of the population is, folks. We need to care what they're doing, because when hunting and fishing related topics come up on the ballot, that part of the state can control the vote. That's why we need them, and that's why the Michigan Wildlife Council is so important. Here for mioutdoors.org.
Time now for Michigan's #1 outdoor radio show, Mike Avery's Outdoor Magazine. Mike Avery has covered the outdoors in Michigan for more than 4 decades, and that tradition continues today. Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Jay's Sporting Goods, the Eider Insurance Group, Angler Quest Pontoons and Polar Craft Boats, the Forward Corporation, Primal Tree Stands, Security Credit Union, Garber Chevrolet, Brenton USA Hunting Rifles, and by Michigan Brand Meats. Now, here's Mike Avery.
Indeed, this is the big guy, Mike Avery, and welcome to hour number 2 of this week's Outdoor Magazine show right here on the Outdoor Magazine Radio Network. More than 30 stations across the great state of Michigan talking about the history and tradition of the outdoor lifestyle, hunting and fishing and shooting and trapping and conservation issues and wildlife issues and even some wild game cooking. And I do appreciate you being along with us. And I do feel that the best way to listen to this radio show, if you can, is on your local radio station, because first and foremost, this is an outdoor radio show. Again, heard on more than 30 radio stations across our state. Best way to listen, I think, is on those stations because you get your local news, your local weather, your local sports, your local ads, your local commercials, your local sales, plus the broadcast stations get the content of the show before the podcast version of the show is uploaded. Now, people say, well, so you have a radio show and a podcast. What's the difference? The podcast is nothing more than the audio from the radio show made available as a podcast. So if you listen to one, you've heard the other. And if you can't listen on your local radio station, it's nice to know the podcast is out there. You can hear that on my website, MikeAveryOutdoors.com, on my Facebook page, on Amazon Music, on Audible, on Twitter, on LinkedIn, on iTunes, which is now called Apple Play, maybe, Google Play, iHeartRadio, SoundCloud, yada, yada, yada. Even YouTube. Yeah, I put the radio show up on YouTube. It doesn't make any sense, but people watch it / listen to it there. But again, regardless of how you are hearing my voice, I appreciate it. While I'm talking about podcasts, though, a blatant promotion for the Outdoor Magazine Podcast Network, I do monthly podcasts for offshore tackle, angler quest boats, primal tree stands, and polar craft boats. And when we're done here in the studio recording this week's radio show, I will do this week's Primal Tree Stands podcast. You can hear that at primaltreestands.com. So what's going on in the outdoors here in the great state of Michigan this Memorial weekend? Turkey season wrapping up. Another reminder to put in for your Michigan bear or elk tag. Fishing season kicking off, getting hot, depending on what you're chasing and where you're chasing. What about this? What about bow fishing? You might know it as carp shooting. It used to commonly be called carp shooting. Bow fishing is a pretty cool topic. It kind of combines fishing and hunting. It's a lot of fun. There's a lot of action, and it's growing like crazy. Here in Michigan, we have the Bowfishing Association of Michigan. Their website, bowfishbam.com, bowfishbam.com. And Jason Horton is a member of the Michigan Bowfishing Association and an avid bow fisherman. He joins us now on the Outdoor Magazine phone line. Jason, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm good, Mike. Good morning.
Hey, good morning to you as well. So tell me, how did you get started in bow fishing?
Well, actually, probably about 10 years ago now, a good buddy of mine that actually he developed the Arrow Out product that has become quite a hit with bow fishermen. Him and I found an old green boat, fiberglass tri-hull behind his house. We pulled it out, cleaned it up, took a piece of wood as a platform, screwed on some halogen lights, and that's how the addiction started.
and now it is an addiction, Jason?
Oh, yeah. So we hit every tournament. I'm also the treasurer of BAM. So to be involved is a huge, huge thing for me.
So what is the appeal? Why is this so addicting to you and so many others across the state and even across the country these days?
I feel like it's the action. Granted, you have times that you go out and it might be a slow night, but the appeal, I think, is just the nonstop action that you usually have, the camaraderie. I mean, don't get me wrong, I love deer hunting, I love turkey hunting, but as you know, you're quiet, you're still, and this is the complete opposite. You're moving all the time, you're trying new things, and you're just having a good time with your friends.
And you don't have to be quiet at all.
No. Most of the time we have a radio going, and we're singing, dancing, goofing off, and then every now and then we fling an arrow.
Now, the times I have done it, and my exposure to bow fishing was always during the daytime, but I heard you talking about nights and going out after dark. Is that the trend now, more nighttime shooting?
Yeah. The development with these new LEDs and even the old high-pressure sodiums, you can see fantastic a lot of times at night. And it's just a lot easier to to hone in on fish, where during the daytime, the conditions got to be right. But it can be a little bit more difficult, but it's still a great time during the day as well.
So are your tournaments then nighttime tournaments?
All of BAM's tournaments are at night. There is GLBC, Great Lakes Bowfishing Championship, that they do their 2-day tournament during the day on Saginaw Bay. But for us as BAM, we do all of ours at night.
So where do you do this? You mentioned Saginaw Bay, but what type of water are you looking for? Is it all Great Lakes or is it inland as well?
Oh, yeah, it's all over Michigan. So inland, the Great Lakes. So our last tournament, which was just this last weekend, that was held at Sleepy Hollow State Park there, and that was just our meeting point. That's where our registration was, where you could sign up for the tournament, and then it was a trailering event. So as soon as send-off, everybody can go where they wanted. It was called the East Big 30, so it was everything from, like 127 to the east. So you could go anywhere you wanted. I heard of people going clear up north. I'm assuming somewhere up by like Thunder Bay, so driving 2, 3, 4 hours up north. There was a lot of guys that went to Saginaw Bay, so a couple hours away, and people stayed local, stayed right on the lake that we were at there. So each tournament is a little bit different. So that tournament just last weekend just happened to be throughout the eastern side of the state, wherever you wanted to spend the time traveling to.
Well, and I know you guys there, you like to promote these tournaments, but there's a lot of people just go out and shoot for fun, I would imagine.
Absolutely. We actually came upon someone that was just shooting for fun. We assumed they were in the tournament we were in, and come to find out they were just shooting for fun. So
what fish can you shoot? I mean, there's always concern. I don't want people shooting my walleye. I don't want them shooting my trout. You don't do that, do you?
Absolutely not. So we mainly focus on carp. There's also dogfish. There's gar. Only long-nosed gar, short-nosed gar, not permitted in the state of Michigan. And then you got your special stuff like your drum and your shad and your goldfish. Sometimes out on the big lakes you might see the little football-shaped goldfish, and those are legal for us to take as well.
Where do those goldfish come from?
I have no idea. I've heard rumors of people dumping their goldfish from a fish tank, and I have no idea where those came from.
But I've seen the same thing. It's kind of crazy when you're cruising along there and you see a foot-long goldfish. It's like, wow, yeah, we need to shoot that and get that out because that's obviously an invasive species.
Yeah, it definitely throws you off a little bit when you first see one.
Oh. Well, and I've got to believe, too, that when you're cruising along these shallows, especially after dark, some of the fish you see, even the non-target fish, you must see some pretty cool things.
Oh, yeah, there is nothing like seeing the game fish, and that's the reason we're doing it. Walleye fishing is so big in the state of Michigan right now, and that's why we target these carp, because they're bottom feeders. They're sucking up any eggs that may be laid, and that's the reason we're out there. But just to see some of these giants, to be trolling along and you look over and go, wow, that's a weird spot for a giant rock, and next thing you know it moves and it's a big snapping turtle, or having a beaver or a muskrat go swimming past you. It's pretty incredible time.
And if you're not expecting it, probably gets your attention and maybe puts a little bit of a little adrenaline, a mini adrenaline rush.
Sometimes we see how fast we can get the camera out to just take photos, or we've had times where we've been trolling along and you don't realize that I've been hit in the chest with a duck before. He'd come flying out of the weeds, smack me in the chest, about knocked me over, and it's interesting sometimes. We're
talking with Jason Horton of the Michigan Bowfishing Association, their website, bowfishbam.com, bowfishbam.com, the Bowfishing Association of Michigan, talking about what you might commonly call, or what we used to call, carp shooting, but it's a lot more. Jason, I got to take a break, but I'd like to have you hang around and talk a little bit more about the specifics and the gear that you guys use, too, if you can give me some more time.
All right.
Perfect. Jason Horton of the Michigan Bowfishing Association, bowfishbam.com, bowfishbam.com. I have had a couple of experiences with bow fishing. One of them was out on Saginaw Bay, but it was a daytime fishing adventure. But like Jason said, you got to pick the right day, right? If you're going to be out in the daytime, you got to get a day when there's not much wind. So so you don't have waves screwing you up. You got to get just the right cloud cover, just enough where you can see without the reflection of the sun. And it was an absolute riot. And I shot more arrows in 3 hours of bow fishing in that one afternoon than I have thrown in an entire lifetime of bow hunting for whitetails. So the action, I get that. Jason says it's the action. I get it. Bowfishbam.com, the website of the Bowfishing Association of Michigan. More with Jason Horton coming up after the break right here on Outdoor Magazine. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Carroll on WKYO 1360 AM and WIDL 92.1 FM. You can hear us in Sheboygan on Big Country Gold, WCBY 1240 AM and 100.7 FM. And you can hear us north of the bridge in Iron Mountain on WMIQ 1450 AM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Boning Archery. Michigan-based Boning has been a leader in the archery industry since 1946. That means what, 72, 76 years? When Roland Boning invented Ferrule-Tite to glue broadheads to what at the time were wooden shafts. These days, Boning continues to innovate, come up with new products, new manufacturing processes. As I was in the turkey woods here this spring, I was using Boning products, as I will when I go bear hunting here and this fall, deer hunting as well. If you are a target archer or a bow hunter, I would suspect you are using some type of Boning product. And if not, I really take a look at them. They haven't been in business that long because they didn't know what they were doing. They've got a good handle on it. They make everything for bows and arrows except bows and arrows. Check them out online at boning.com. That's BOHNING, boning.com. Talking now with Jason Horton of the Michigan Bowfishing Association, their website, bowfishbam.com, bowfishbam.com. Jason, let's talk a little bit about the gear that you guys are using. And I guess I should have made this more clear right off the top. I mean, you're using a bow of some type, right? You're not shooting them with a gun or anything like that. You're bow fishing for these fish.
Yes, only bow.
Compound, recurve, what's the preference?
Actually, either. It just depends on what you prefer. Most people are using a compound, but there is a handful of people I know that use a recurve. What is super popular is the Oneida Bows. In that style, there's now starting to be quite a few different brands out there, but the lever bows, if you remember the old Oneida Bows, that's become a huge product in our industry.
I remember the Oneidas very well. Tell me why that style.
So a lot of people prefer there's really no let off to it. They're super smooth. It's a preference thing. Now I know a couple of my buddies, they would prefer to just have a normal compound bow. That's what they like. That's what they're comfortable with. But it's really just a preference thing, to be honest with you. So
the Oneida style bow then sounds like it gives you the power of a compound, yet the let off of like a recurve. You don't have that wall you've got to go past. So you could snap shoot it. You could short draw it, and it would still work for you.
Yes, and a lot of people will lower their Oneidas down in the poundage, which, as you stated before the break, when you're out there and you're flinging a couple hundred arrows a night, that can start to wear you out. Where these Oneida, mine, for example, is set at 22 pounds. That's all I'm pulling back.
I like that.
And I have absolutely no problem sticking fish. So it's really kind of a nice thing to be able to lower that poundage down. I don't personally, I've never had a compound that I've put that low and felt comfortable with. My compounds are more up near 35, 40 pounds. So, and I know you can do it, and I know people will probably, send me bad emails saying, no, I can lower mine down that far. But
sure.
It's really just a preference.
So a little off topic. Do you know, is Claude Pollington still making those Oneida Bows here in Michigan?
That I do not know, but I believe Bass Pro Shop bought out Oneida.
Oh, okay. Well, that way, we got off track there, but it was interesting to follow up on that. Jason, so you're shooting these things with an arrow, a fiberglass arrow, a heavy arrow, and what type of a tip are you using?
It's a barbed tip, so they've now came out with so many different styles. There's the old style that is still very effective that just has, almost reminds you of a paper clip through it that's bent up. It's just a small barb. There's some that have almost like a blade look to it. 2 barb, 3 barb. There's a company out there called Harshlock that has developed in the last few years an arrow where you don't even have to unscrew the tip anymore. You push down on the top of it, and it will release the 2 barbs to release the fish off. Because what happens is when you shoot the fish and you reel it in, you've obviously got to get the fish off the arrow, but those barbs have it stuck on there. So there's certain arrows that you have to unscrew the tip of it. So if it's not pushed all the way through the fish, you have to continue to push it through and unscrew the tip, or the whole barb and everything will turn. So as you twist the arrow, it loosens it, the barb and all, and then you just shake your arrow and the barb will flip and release the fish.
So what's this product that your buddy invented? That sounds like it's something along that line?
No, the product that my buddy invented is called the Arrow Out, and that was developed. I like to take a lot of credit for it because we were at a FAM tournament, and it was on the Saginaw Bay, and every shot was going into roots, and thankfully it was a beautiful day. Half the time, he's about 6'4", and half the time he didn't even bother to put a shirt back on because he was half underwater as we were holding his legs trying to grab these arrows. Well, when you're spending $20, $30, $40, $50 on an arrow, you don't really want to just snap the line off and lose it. And just that tournament alone, he literally said something has to be there's got to be a better way to do this. So he developed a product that's on a 6-foot handle. He's also got some extendable ones, and it has a lever action to it with rubber on it, and you literally can slide this thing down in the water, put it over top of your arrow, and just the pressure of it laying on your arrow, you can pull up, and it hinges on the arrow, and it will help rip the arrow out of the bottom because we're in such shallow water that your arrows get stuck a lot.
What depth of water are you guys usually shooting?
Well, so this last tournament last weekend, for example, we were seeing fish that were up in the shallows of 1, 2, 3 foot. A few weekends ago at a tournament, it was pretty chilly out, and they tend to hang a little deeper. And there was times we were shooting 4, 5, 6 foot of water, and then you do need your poundage up to be able to get down there. So the warmer waters, they tend to come up, and you're going to be shooting in, foot or 2 of water.
But the deeper the water you're shooting, the harder it is, I think, for a beginner to hit the fish because the fish isn't where it looks like when you're looking at it from the surface.
Yes, there's a huge refraction when it comes to water, and any new people we take, we always have here's the rule of thumb, aim low, and if you think you're aiming too low, aim lower. So that's kind of the whole rule of thumb with bow fishing because there is a huge refraction, especially the deeper in the water you go.
Now, when you get, say, one of these big carp on the line, when you hit them, do you stone them? Are they just out dead, or do they put up a fight for you?
Oh, they put up a fight. Sometimes you get lucky enough to send them into a dizziness, but most of the time they are just gone. And the bigger they are, the more arrows we try to get in it because you don't want to snap a line. And there's been times we've just about been pulled out of a boat.
So what's a big carp? What do you guys see that you consider a big fish?
Well, in Michigan, I mean, if you can get something over 25, 30 pounds, you're pretty happy. This last tournament, the winning big fish from last weekend was a 44.6 pound carp.
Man,
big carp. I think the next closest was, I believe, a 28 or 29 pound carp. So, I mean, if you shoot a 30 pound carp, you're pretty happy. Shoot a 44 pound carp, you're ecstatic.
Wow. And then I see down south they shoot these big alligator gar. That would be quite an adventure, wouldn't it?
Oh my goodness, it would definitely be a wonderful adventure.
Speaking of gars, the gars here we have though in Michigan, those long skinny fish. How do you ever hit those things?
A lot of luck, a lot of practice, more luck.
Wow, I'll take it.
Gar are fantastic to eat, even.
Really?
Yeah, we had a gentleman that was part of the BAM board years ago, and every now and then he would show up at a tournament and be deep frying little gar nuggets, and they're fantastic. They're like a couple pieces of white backstrap on their back.
No kidding. Now I didn't realize that, but it's one of the things that people always ask is, well, listen, they're shooting these fish. What are they doing with them? And that's a valid question. You got maybe hundreds of pounds of fish. What do you do with them?
Well, for BAM, any BAM tournaments, we take care of the fish. So we either will hire a waste disposal company, which is a huge cost for BAM, is to hire a waste disposal company to come in. They leave a dumpster, and then we fill that dumpster up, and then they come that day and pick it up and haul it away for us. And that's a huge expense. So the last few years, we've really been promoting guys with like dump trailers and stuff that are willing to take them to some farms and stuff and bury them. But for the most part, we're usually using dumpsters. Now, if you're not in a BAM tournament, we always suggest for people to try to find someone that will let you dump your fish. We are huge with MUCC, and they help us a ton on some of our bow fishing stuff. And one of the biggest things for us is disposal, because a lot of times the one time you get someone that dumps at the boat launch after they're done, or ditch dumps next to a nice subdivision, that's the times that hurt us, and it only takes one person.
Sure.
So we always suggest getting on our website and emailing us and asking if we have suggestions of places to put them.
Well, ideally they get used for fertilizer, right? I mean, that's the goal, so it doesn't go to waste.
Yeah, we actually had a company last year that a gentleman came in and he brought a dump trailer, and that's what he was doing with them. He was hauling them away, and they were going to be, I believe, ground up for fertilizer.
Nice. Well, Jason, you guys are doing a great thing. I mean, you're having fun, but you're also getting some of these fish out of these lakes that really need to be cleaned up. So I congratulate you on that. Real quick, you got something this weekend, right?
Yes, this weekend is the youth shoot. So it's 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. This Saturday at the Bay City State Park. It's on our website. It's hosted by, I believe you know, Brian Gilson, fantastic gentleman. This is his heart and soul, is this youth shoot. Go to the website, bowfishbam.com. That's bowfishbam.com for more details on the shoot this weekend and bow fishing in Michigan in general. We'll take a break. When we come back, Randy Claremont of the DNR talking about the Lake Huron fishery. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show on more than 30 stations across the great state of Michigan, including Sports Extra 1330 WTRX in Flint. In Houghton Lake, you can hear us on the Twister 92.1 WTWS, and you can hear us in Lansing on WILS 1320 AM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by MUCC's On the Ground program. OTG is a program to improve habitat for fish and wildlife across the state. For details, check out the Michigan United Conservation Club's website. It's mucc.org. That's mucc.org. And a reminder, if you want to save 25% on signing up to become an MUCC member, like I am,
use the promo code Mike, all caps, MIKE, at that website, mucc.org, and you can save a few bucks. It's a win-win all the way around. I want to turn our attention right now to our Great Lakes fishery, specifically the Lake Huron fishery. Randy Claremont is a DNR fisheries biologist. He is, in fact, the Lake Huron Basin Coordinator, and he joins us now on the Outdoor Magazine phone line. Randy, welcome back. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic, Mike. Thanks for having me.
Listen, a real pleasure. So tell me, I think the title is fairly self-explanatory, but what is your area of responsibility? What do you keep an eye on?
Yes, basically it's everything that flows into Lake Huron that will impact fish. So from the St. Mary's River to Port Huron and inland waters, including the Asable River, the northern inland lakes, and everything in between.
Man, you've got some diverse fisheries, some diverse resources there, Randy.
That's for sure. A lot of great staff working hard to manage those resources.
So what are you seeing now in your area of responsibility? What are you seeing that's really got your attention, maybe that you're excited about?
Yeah, I would say, the outlook for Lake Huron, a lot of people are familiar with the demise of the salmon fishery after the alewife crash in the early 2000s, the impact of zebra quagga mussels and the changes in the food web. But the outlook is really fantastic for Lake Huron. We've kind of turned a corner. You mentioned it with the diversity. I mean, the diversity is fantastic. We stock 2.2 million trout and salmon in Lake Huron from 5 different species: lake trout, Chinook, steelhead, Atlantic salmon, and in 2019 we reintroduced coho salmon. That was species we used to stock. We last stocked them in Tawas Bay in 1989, and we've reintroduced them, and they're doing fantastic. So the outlook, as far as a diversity standpoint, is just really great for Lake Huron. There's a better balance between the salmon, trout, and the prey species now, and there should be great opportunities for anglers. I've
actually heard some real nice reports of the coho coming back. A pretty good spring.
Yeah, it was. We started restocking them in 2019. It's been getting better every year. The fishery starts off in the spring in the southern Lake Huron, and then kind of moves up the shoreline from that. So this is just a great opportunity for anglers. They're very catchable. And then what we really like about the coho is they don't require the same amount of prey resources as Chinook salmon. So they can utilize smaller bait fish. They seem to be doing better. So we actually reduced Chinook a little bit to make room for the coho, and it's just turned out great.
Well, speaking of alternatives to kings, to Chinook, the Atlantic has a lot of people excited. Now, is that something the DNR is working on, or is that strictly come on to Lake Superior State?
Great question. The Atlantic salmon fishery was primarily a lake state, St. Mary's River fishery, and about 15 years ago we decided to expand that, based on, again, the challenges with the Chinook salmon. And the Atlantic salmon program is now, we have 2 hatcheries, the Platte State Fish Hatchery and the Harrietta State Fish Hatchery. We rear an additional 180,000 Atlantic salmon that are stocked in Lake Huron, in addition to the 30,000 that are stocked in the St. Mary's River by Lake State. So it's an expanded program, and it's a cooperation with Lake State, and one that is exciting. If you haven't caught an Atlantic salmon, they're extremely fun to catch. A little challenging at times, but really fun fish to catch, and they're out there, and we're hearing great reports as well.
And you may have answered my next question. Is there enough of a fishery for Atlantics that you can go out and target them, or are they an incidental catch at this point?
Yeah, in certain areas, there's definitely a targeted fishery. In the St. Mary's River, Drummond Island, this time of year, there's a really good fishery where those fish will stage kind of before going up into the river. Early in the spring in southern Lake Huron, we've seen some really good targeted fisheries. And then obviously we stock them at Lexington Harbor, the Asable River, and Thunder Bay River. And those fisheries at times, especially in the fall, can be targeted fisheries. But again, in the fall, they tend to get a little finicky, and they'll turn it on and off. But it is a targeted fishery. The rest of the time, the open lake, it is one of the incidental catches. So I get a lot of reports from anglers that are out there. They might even be fishing for walleye, and they catch an Atlantic salmon. So, it's kind of like with Lake Huron now. It's a great opportunity, and you almost don't know what you're going to get.
Randy, I want to follow up on that. I want to keep you around for the Ask Avery segment. I want to follow up on that. The two questions I'll have for you is Lake Michigan and Lake Huron, a comparison there. Are they more similar, or are they completely different ecosystems? And then, Randy, I'm going to want to follow up, so I'll get you thinking about this. We've been talking about a very small number of walleye found in Lake Huron that are brown-colored and the flesh is hard. Is that a concern? Save your answer till after the break. We're talking with Randy Clermont. He is the DNR fisheries biologist. He's the Lake Huron Basin coordinator, in fact, for the DNR, so he's got a lot of things on his plate. But two questions I will ask him after the break, coming up right here on Outdoor Magazine, the DNR's website, michigan.gov/DNR, michigan.gov/DNR. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Houghton Lake on 98.5 WUPS. You can hear us in Holland on WHTC 1450 AM, 99.7 FM. And you can hear us north of the bridge in Newberry on WNBY 1450 AM, just a few of our more than 30 Outdoor Magazine affiliates. The Ask Avery segment is brought to you each week by my friends at Security Credit Union. Security Credit Union loves to work with outdoorsmen and women, and they can help you with your next outdoor adventure. Check them out online at securitycu.org. That's securitycu.org. The best way to ask these questions to get them to me is to send me an email to Mike at MikeAveryOutdoors.com. Mike at MikeAveryOutdoors.com. Now, this week's Ask Avery segment, I've actually got Randy Claremont, who is a DNR fisheries biologist, the Lake Huron Basin coordinator, on the show, and I thought I'm going to hold him over for the Ask Avery segment and just do kind of a pseudo live Ask Avery segment. Randy, I appreciate your time. A couple of questions for you. Lake Huron versus Lake Michigan, are they more similar, or are they two completely different ecosystems?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say there are a lot of similarities. People see the Lake Michigan, Lake Huron salmon fishery or perch and walleye fishery or other components being similar, but I would argue they're very unique in their ecosystems. Lake Huron gets both Lake Michigan and Lake Superior water. It reacted differently to big threats like zebra quagga mussel invasions. It has, one of the big challenges continued from sea lamprey with the St. Mary's River production. So both the challenges and the strengths of the fishery in Lake Huron make it very unique, and we have to manage it that way. And certainly if you look at both the Atlantic salmon fishery we were talking about, it's very unique. We have one of probably the biggest landlocked Atlantic salmon populations in North America. Wow. With our stocking in Lake Huron, and also Saginaw Bay walleye, extremely unique fishery in Saginaw Bay. Grew up there fishing it myself, so I would say it's unique, and we manage it that way.
All right, and my next question, and this is really the crux of the Ask Avery segment, is talking about these discolored, hard-fleshed walleye from Lake Huron. I'll preface this. We had Keith DeWall, the president of the Saginaw Bay Walleye Club, on a couple of weeks to talk about this. My concern, Randy, is that there have been only a few cases of this, yet it's being blown out of proportion by the media and maybe even some concerned anglers. You're the expert. How big a deal is this?
Yeah, I appreciate you characterizing that way because, it is important we respond to any fish diseases, pathogens, and we have a process to do that. I kind of concur or agree with you that this is one that I wouldn't get too alarmed with, just based on the fact that we only see a few of these per year. They typically show up after spawning, and, the fish looks horrific. It's kind of like a freezer burnt look internally in the flesh. It's very sandy, grainy. Some people call it or refer to it as a sandy flesh disease. But the truth is we're not seeing it widespread. Likewise, let me just say this. a technical term for this is that it could be is a myofibrogranuloma, and that is a non-infectious disease, so it's not driven by a pathogen. There are pathogens or things that can cause this kind of freezer bird appearance. So we still have been asking anglers, we would love to get our hands on a fish. It can't be frozen. It has to be put on ice. We want to be cautious to make sure, please, you can use our Eyes in the Field app. You can contact us with some images before we, try to coordinate getting a sample. But we really do want to test to make sure it isn't a pathogen. But for the most part, this is not one that we see is going to cause a widespread distribution or a problem for human health consumption.
So it's not of the level of, say, BKD back in the salmon days. It's nothing that's going to decimate our walleye population.
Right, or VHS was one that we were very concerned about as a good example. But no, it's not on that scale. And appreciate anglers, sharing that information and certainly post some pictures. And we still would like to get samples, but we're just not alarmed at the level as other pathogens that we know are highly contagious, cause mortality problems on a large scale. So it's not one of those.
So how many fish are known to have been caught that you guys know of with this, whatever this is?
Yeah, we've been, kind of archiving the samples, and the reports. So we have about 5 reports this year. And like I said, previous years we get 1 or 2 at most. Yep. But again, we have not been able to get our hands on an actual fish to test. We have a good relationship with Michigan State University. They'll do a lot of our clinical testing on fish like this. So about 5 fish that we've been reported, but we haven't had any samples. 5
fish, and how many walleye are caught on Lake Huron every year?
Oh, it can range from 200 to 400,000 walleye.
Yeah, I'm not too worried about 5 fish. All right, Randy, listen, I appreciate your time, and thanks for helping us fill out this Ask Avery segment, and for all the good work you do on Lake Huron. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks, Mike, for having me. Appreciate it.
All right, Randy Claremont of the Michigan DNR, the website michigan.gov/DNR, michigan.gov/DNR. And again, a big thank you to our friends at Security Credit Union for making each week's Ask Avery segment possible. They love to work with outdoorsmen and women, and they can help you with your next outdoor adventure. Check them out online at securitycu.org. That's securitycu.org. And if you have a question for me, either something you want me to answer directly, or if you want me to pass it along to somebody in the DNR or the feds or MUCC or something, send me an email to Mike at MikeAveryOutdoors.com, Mike at MikeAveryOutdoors.com, and in the subject line, put Ask Avery. Richard P. Smith coming up after the break in hour number 3 of this week's Outdoor Magazine.
Time now for Michigan's #1 outdoor radio show, Mike Avery's Outdoor Magazine. Mike Avery has covered the outdoors in Michigan for more than 4 decades, and that tradition continues today. Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Jay's Sporting Goods, the Eider Insurance Group, Angler Quest Pontoons and Polar Craft Boats, the Forward Corporation, Primal Tree Stands, Security Credit Union, Garber Chevrolet, Brenton USA Hunting Rifles, and by Michigan Brand Meats. Now, here's Mike Avery.
Indeed, this is the big guy, and thank you, Ken Hunter, for that introduction. Welcome to hour number 3 of this week's Outdoor Magazine show right here on the Outdoor Magazine Radio Network. More than 30 stations across the great state of Michigan, and I am glad to be on each and every one of them. If you can't listen to the broadcast version of the show, which I think is the best way, listen on your local AM or FM station. There is a podcast available. You can hear that on my website, MikeAveryOutdoors.com, and all of the other podcast platforms that are out there. Regardless of how you are hearing my voice, I do certainly appreciate it. This is Memorial Day weekend, as we are talking, the unofficial kickoff of the summer season. Just another quick reminder, and it's the last time I'll bring this up. Well, probably. If you want to apply for a Michigan bear or a Michigan elk tag, don't waste any more time. You have until the end of the month, but do it now while you are thinking about it. I will apply for a Michigan elk tag, knowing full well I will never get one. I will apply for the third season in Newberry, thinking that I have a very, very good chance of getting one. I guess, wouldn't it be cool if I did get an elk tag? And then wouldn't it be cool if I did get a bear tag? And what if I was able to shoot a book bull elk? And what if I was able to shoot a book Michigan bear? And what if I also had a book turkey that I had taken as well? Wouldn't that be cool? There aren't many people who have done that. Richard P. Smith is one of them. You know Richard, noted outdoor writer, expert on bear and deer hunting here in the great state of Michigan. His website, richardpsmith.com, richardpsmith.com. And he's with us once again here on the Outdoor Magazine phone line. Richard, welcome back. How are you?
Great, Mike. How are you?
Hey, I'm doing just great. Listen, before we get to some of the topics at hand today, let's talk about this accomplishment that you did. What is that called? The
a CBM Grand Slam.
Grand Slam.
Commemorative Bucks of Michigan is the big game record keeper for Michigan, and they keep records on deer, bear, elk, and turkeys taken by hunters in the state. And those of us who have taken one of each of those species that qualifies for state records has a CBM Grand Slam. And it took me many years to anybody who have accomplished it. It takes a while. And, of course, as you know, the elk is the most difficult.
Oh, my goodness. Yeah. How many years ago did you shoot that elk, Richard?
I think it was 1999.
Oh, so it's been a while.
It's been a while, yeah. But it was actually the turkey that I got last that qualified for state records that completed the Grand Slam. I had taken a bear and several deer and the elk prior to getting the Grand Slam. In fact, when I knew I didn't have a turkey to make the Grand Slam, I concentrated on trying to take a record book turkey.
So, that's right. So whitetail is also included in that Grand Slam, correct?
Yes, exactly.
Okay. Well, that's interesting because actually I don't think of you, and I may be wrong here, I don't think of you much as a turkey hunter. So this was something you did to complete this quest.
Right, although I used to hunt turkeys every year, Mike. After I completed the Grand Slam and took that book turkey, I did a lot of spring bear hunting at the time, and I kind of got out of turkey hunting. Even though we have a fall hunt as well, I'm busy bear hunting here and deer hunting during the fall, so I got out of turkey hunting.
When you have a goal of shooting a big animal, a trophy animal, do you approach that hunt differently than if you were just trying to take an animal?
Yes, and I've for many years I've concentrated on taking adult male black bears that have a good chance of qualifying for state and national records, because harvesting adult males increases cub survival. Adult male bears are one of the biggest predators on cubs. They routinely kill cubs, so taking adult males out of the population increases cub survival, and it increases the chances you're going to get an animal that qualifies for the records.
And obviously, when you target a mature whitetail buck, that's a different hunt. What about the elk? Was that just a matter of being patient and picking through till you found the right animal?
Yes, definitely. When I drew an either sex elk tag, my goal was to try and take a bull that qualified for state records. And I came close to getting a state record non-typical bull with a muzzleloader. And I was snow tracking the bull, and I got a shot at him in a aspen clear cut. And unfortunately, I think my bullet was deflected by the thick aspens when I took the shot. I did hit him, but I trailed him for a long ways after that and made a non-fatal hit on him, unfortunately. But then I switched to my 30-06 and I killed a smaller 6x6 typical bull.
Good old 30-06, a Michigan staple right there.
But I passed up a number of 5x5 bulls. I snow tracked a group of 3 bulls, caught up to them, and they were all bedded, and they stood up. And the biggest was a 5x5, so I passed those up.
So
it was a fun hunt.
So did you use a guide, or did you go down there on your own?
I went down on my own. I had been down on a number of elk hunts to cover them as a writer, and I went down there a week ahead of when the hunt started and did some scouting, and I had a couple friends who helped pinpoint areas where I should look around. So the scouting I did ahead of the hunt was very helpful.
So had you always put in for an either sex tag, meaning a bull tag?
Yes, I had.
Yeah, I do the same thing, and I realize I am severely limiting my chances. And there's nothing wrong with shooting a cow and getting all that beautiful venison in the freezer. But it's like, if I'm going to shoot a Michigan elk, I want it to be a bull.
Exactly. And many people feel the same way. I think I applied for 10 years, and in the UP, only 1 or 2 tags were going to UP residents at the time. I was very lucky.
Wow.
To be drawn.
You must have used an in with all your friends at the DNR to get you that tag.
I don't think it was any in. I was just lucky.
Well, listen, now that this is, that we're running out of time to apply for a Michigan bear or a Michigan elk tag, any advice, Richard, what should people keep in mind if they want to increase their odds of being successful in the draw?
Well, as you mentioned in the intro there, applying for the third hunt in the UP, if a hunter wants to hunt bear in the UP and you only have either 0 preference points or 1 or 2, applying for the third hunt in any of the UP bear management units except Drummond Island dramatically increases your chances of drawing. In fact, I draw a tag every year for the Baraga Bear Management Unit applying for that third hunt with no preference points.
So I've hunted that third season before, but only once. So I have a little bit of a feel for it. But what is that third season like? How is it a different hunt, or is it a different hunt from the first season?
Well, it is, because with small game season open and bear season having been open for weeks by the time the third hunt starts on September 25th, bears are more cautious, or they can be more cautious if they're in areas that have been pressured. So during that third hunt, it's important to be successful if you want to see bears, to hunt in areas where there's been little to no previous hunting pressure by bear hunters or small game hunters. It increases your chances of seeing bears during legal hunting hours.
And I think that's one thing I've got going for me. I'm hunting with Johnny Bowler, who has a kind of a honey hole there that doesn't get a lot of pressure. So that helps out. At what point, though, when do bears in the UP start to den up? Does that happen during that third season, or is that not a concern?
It's not a major concern. There are some pregnant females that have reached their peak weight at that point. If they've eaten enough quality food and there's abundant natural food, some females might go down in early October, not during that first week of that third hunt. Mm-hmm. But by early October, some females may den up, but the males stay active the longest. And though for management purposes, it's better to take males than females. But we have no shortage of bears. We have plenty of bears. Taking adult females without cubs is legal and not a problem.
Well, and speaking of bears, not the population, but the distribution, we're getting more and more reports and sightings of bears down here in the central part of the Lower Peninsula. I guess you can argue whether the population is whatever, because there is that argument, but you can't deny that the geographic range of these critters is expanding.
No question. And there's no doubt in my mind that bear populations underestimated routinely by the DNR because of the method they use. They use hunter harvest data to plug into their computer program to estimate the population, but their estimates is always 2 years behind the population.
Well, Richard, listen, I got to take a break, but let's kind of continue on this talk of Richard's thoughts on how things are managed here in Michigan, but we'll turn it to whitetails. I told you earlier in the show, Richard says that he believes if UP deer hunters actually knew what was going on and took the time to look at this and dissect this, that they would be absolutely furious. So I want to talk more about that with Richard P. Smith. His website is richardpsmith.com. That's richardpsmith.com. We'll take a break here on the Outdoor Magazine Show and continue our conversation with Richard P. Smith right here on Outdoor Magazine. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine Show in West Michigan, in Ludington on WLDN, News 97.98, 98.7 WLDN. Up the coast in Manistee, WMLQ 97.7. Let's go back south in Muskegon, WKBZ 1090 AM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Reader Landscaping. Reader can take care of your lawn and property because it's your nature and our nurture. Let Reader create an outdoor getaway in your backyard as they have for me. In fact, the guys from Reader were over a couple times this week. They were doing some deep root fertilization of our trees and shrubs. And then they came back and put down a weed treatment as well. So everything's looking nice. They've done a great job for me. I know they will for you. Check them out online at readerlandscaping.com. That's Reader, R-E-D-E-R, readerlandscaping.com. While you are online, head on over to richardpsmith.com. That is the website of one of Michigan's best-known outdoor writers, Richard P. Smith. In my opinion, an absolute expert when it comes to bear and deer especially, an expert hunter. And Richard, you've made it very clear that you're not a real fan of how the DNR is handling whitetail hunting management in the UP.
Well, it's important to clarify, it's not the DNR.
Okay.
It's the Natural Resources Commission.
Well, let's make that distinction then. What does that mean?
Well, the Department of Natural Resources can make recommendations for management, change in regulations and seasons and things like that. But it's up to the Natural Resources Commission to either approve or disapprove of those recommendations. So the Natural Resources Commission has the final say. I think a lot of members of the public don't understand that, how it works, that the DNR can make recommendations that are based on the best available information, very sound recommendations, but the Natural Resources Commission can reject those, and that's what they've done for UP hunting regulation changes that were recommended by the Department of Natural Resources to go into effect last fall. The Natural Resources Commission shot those recommendations down, and unfortunately, they're under Proposal G, the Natural Resources Commission is supposed to follow the best available science in making their decisions, and they did not do so when rejecting the DNR recommendations.
For what purpose? Why would they do this? I mean, they are appointed. They're appointed by the governor. That shouldn't play a role in this at all, though, should it?
They're politicians. The decision to reject the DNR recommendations was totally political. It was not based on biology, social science, and if UP hunters understood how they are being penalized under current regulations, I got to believe there'd be a major rebellion. But I don't think many UP deer hunters do understand how they are being penalized unnecessarily by current regulations. The current regulations where both buck tags on UP combination licenses went into effect in 2008, and that was totally a Natural Resources Commission decision. It was not a recommendation by the DNR. Since that time, UP hunters have, their success rate on bucks has been dramatically reduced. Since 2008, when those both combination deer licenses, buck tags and combo licenses were restricted, hunters have been harvesting an average of 29% bucks on success. Prior to that, for 10, 11 years prior to that, the average hunting success on bucks was 35%, 6% higher on average every year. And the big kicker is that there's absolutely no benefit to the resource and certainly not to hunters from these regulations.
Could hunter success rate just be down because there are fewer deer?
There are fewer deer because we've tried to carry too many through severe winters because of the current regulations, and we've had major winter losses. The predator prey study that was conducted in the UP for a number of years had trail camera photos at 60-some sites in their study area in Iron County from 2012 through 2015. And they documented a major reduction in total deer numbers during those years because of severe winters. And they went from 6,600 and some in that study area to 3,200. 50% less, 50% fewer deer because of severe winters, because we were carrying too many deer through the winter. And the number of adult buck reduction was even more. 75% fewer adult bucks in that study area, but those numbers are an index to what was happening throughout the UP because of those regulations. Since 2008, UP hunters have been prevented from shooting more than 100,000 antlered bucks that they could have if regulations had remained the same.
And I'm just thinking out loud here. So I'm thinking the deer managers or the NRC is going to say, well, the numbers are down, so we have to shoot fewer deer. And you're saying, no, we need to shoot more deer to get rid of the excess population more than the carrying capacity of the area in the wintertime.
Exactly. The UP winter range only comprises about 20% of the total land mass of the UP. So if you take all of the deer from the 16,000 square miles in the UP and cram them into, 3,200 square miles, you've got to feed all of those deer in 20% of the habitat of the UP. A lot of people don't understand that. And it's a matter of just increasing hunter success. Throughout most of the rest of the state, regulations are set to increase hunter success. The opposite is true in the UP. We had an average of 35% hunter success on bucks prior to 2008, and we could go back to that if they would return to one unrestricted tag on UP combination licenses and manage deer for hunters to harvest rather than them dying in the winter. That's the purpose of hunting.
Well, and wouldn't another good example of UP hunters being discriminated against is the fact you can't use your crossbow during the late season? I mean,
exactly.
does that make any sense at all?
None. There's no biological benefit of that at all. And also, UP bow hunters in most of the UP can't shoot antlerless deer like they can in the rest of the state. UP hunters are big-time penalized with current regulations with no biological justification for them. I wish more UP hunters understood this and would contact the Natural Resources Commission and tell them they're tired of harvesting fewer deer than they could be able to under current regulations.
Have you seen, in your very long career, that hunter or angler input can or does make a difference to the NRC?
It can, if you hear enough of it. Unfortunately, it doesn't happen all of the time. The management of wolves is a perfect example. The Natural Resources Commission has heard tremendous input on managing wolves in the UP, and they've not responded to that public input. And the biological data supports management of wolves as well. A limited, carefully managed hunt is certainly not going to threaten the wolf population, but they've not moved on that.
So what do you want? What do you want people to do? You say reach out to the NRC. What form does that take? Is it an email? Is it a letter? Is it a phone call? Is it going to Lansing and testifying before them? How does that work?
Any of those, Mike. It's real easy for people to send an email to the commission. All you got to do is write a letter or write an email and email it to nrc@michigan.gov. That's the email address for the commission. Their assistant will forward any emails to that address to the commission. And if you Google Michigan Natural Resources Commission, a page will come up that has the phone numbers, contact information for all of the commissioners, and you can contact them by phone or attend a Natural Resources Commission meeting, as I did at the May meeting, and testified in support of the recommendations the DNR made for last fall. It'd be nice to get those implemented for this year. If we don't change the current regulations, we're looking at another major winter loss during the next severe winter we had. The last winter wasn't bad over most of the UP, but in the Keweenaw, the western UP, parts of the eastern UP, they had more than a foot of snow still on the ground by the end of April. So we had to have lost some deer in those parts of the region last winter. So we need a change in regulation before we have another major winter loss.
And Richard, when you go to Lansing and you testify in front of these people that you have been so publicly opposed to, what is that experience like? I mean, is there obvious iciness in the room? Are they cordial, or how's it feel?
Oh, they're cordial. They accept and are courteous to all people presenting comments, whether they agree with them or not. They understand that's part of the process. They're usually always welcoming. There's no negativity about making a public comment. Yeah. They do want to hear from people. They don't always act on it, but if you feel strongly enough, as I do, I think it's important to testify before them. I usually send a letter ahead of time and reinforce it with the public appearance, adding some different comments than the letter included.
I see. Kind of a twofold approach. All right. Well, Richard, you've always been very strong in your support of what you believe. Like many public figures, not everybody agrees with you, but that's fine. I think you take that in stride, and nobody can ever say you didn't stand up and step up and do what you felt was right for our Michigan resources.
Well, all the data supports it. I just wish more hunters realized how they're being penalized, and it's not benefiting the resource. In fact, it's hurting the resource. Carrying too many deer through the severe winters damaged our winter habitat, so we can't carry as many deer as we used to. That's the bottom line.
Well, Richard, hopefully our conversation today will help get that message across. And as always, I do appreciate your time.
Well, thank you, Mike. And if I can add one thing.
Real quick.
Book 8 of Great Michigan Deer Tales is done and ready to go to the printer. It should be available in a couple of months.
At richardpsmith.com?
Yep.
All right, perfect. Thank you, Richard. Appreciate your time. That is Richard P. Smith, and his website is richardpsmith.com. Keep an eye on that website for that latest edition of Great Michigan Deer Tales. We'll take a break here in the Outdoor Magazine Show. When we come back, we'll wrap up a few more thoughts, and then we'll close it all out with wild game chef extraordinaire Dave MInar right here on Outdoor Magazine. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine Show in Manistee on WTIQ 1490 AM, 95.3 FM. You can hear us in Escanaba, the Riviera of the North, on WCHT 600 AM, 95.3 FM. And you can hear us downstate in Saginaw on WSGW 790 AM and 100.5 FM. I am in the studios of WSGW right now. But for this small 3-hour window, for this small part of the building, I will call this the Outdoor Magazine radio studio. And I have a logo behind me. I have a graphic behind me that proves that. I'm here with Charlie Root. It's always fun to work with Charlie because he has such a following here that people come to watch him. They don't come here when he gets here because he gets here so early in the morning, but they wait around till he leaves. And I can see, Charlie, it's threatening rain, but I can see a few people out there now. I mean, there's a few families. School's starting to get out now, so there's some young kids there, and looks like there's some grandmas and grandpas, and they've got their signs ready to unfurl the banners as Charlie leaves the building to head on home. Usually they chant, Charlie, Charlie. I can't hear him yet today, so I'm sure they'll get started. But Charlie, it's always a pleasure to work with you. I appreciate it. This segment of Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Brenton USA Hunting Rifles. AR-style, highly accurate, tough, and dependable hunting rifles that could change the way you hunt, and they could change the way you think about ARs. In today's world, if you listen to the mass media, the AR-style rifle gets just bad press from people who don't know what they're talking about. They say AR is assault rifle. It's not. It's Armalite. A tool is not bad. Is a hammer bad? No. A hammer can be used for good, but if the wrong person gets in touch with it, a hammer can be used for evil as well. It's the same way with a gun. Guns are not evil, but evil people sometimes use guns. These Brenton USA AR-style hunting rifles are not designed as self-defense guns, and I have a couple of self-defense AR-style rifles. But I'm looking forward to getting my hands on one of these AR hunting rifles. In fact, I have a 350 Legend that I have on order. And I want to see how this compares. The tolerances are tighter. It's it's a tight precision-made rifle designed for accuracy to several hundred yards, 250, 300 yards, which you're not going to get out of say, my DPMS or my Stag, more of a self-defense AR rifle. By the way, their website is BrentonUSA.com. That's BrentonUSA.com. And we are doing a Wednesday night live from the Brenton factory in Lansing the evening of June 8th. That's at 7 o'clock, as all of my Wednesday night lives are. Now, if you have not tuned into a Wednesday night live, let me tell you what that's about. It is a chance for you and I to have more of a direct interaction than we do here on the radio show. On the radio show, I talk into this microphone. I talk to my guests. I try to think maybe of what questions you might have, and I try to ask those questions of my guests, but it's not a chance for you and I to interact directly. On the Wednesday night lives that I do every Wednesday night at 7 o'clock on my social media platforms, you can join the conversation. You can come on and you can ask me questions, and we can have a direct back and forth question and answer session. And it's a video format. It's not just audio. It's video. You don't have to show your face, but I'm showing mine. We're going to do one of those again Wednesday evening, June 8th at 7 o'clock from the Brenton USA factory in Lansing. And one more thing on Brenton. These are not inexpensive guns. You get what you pay for. The folks at Brenton realize this. As a way to help ease the pain a little bit, if you use the promo code Avery on their website, BrentonUSA.com, BrentonUSA.com, use the promo code Avery, you can get $100 off on any one of their rifles. So I think that's a big deal, and I think that's very, very cool. So what else is cool? Well, it's not cool that I think, officially pulled the plug on my turkey season. Now, I realize the season's basically over at this point. It's one of the most, I almost said disappointing, I almost said frustrating. I don't want to use those terms, because whenever I have a chance to get outdoors, whenever I have a chance to hunt or fish and just spend time out in God's creation, it's a good experience, right? I get that. But this year, I not only did I not get a bird, I didn't have an opportunity at a bird, and I actually only saw 2 birds, longbeards, the entire season, and heard very, very few gobbles. And my hunting style is kind of a sit and wait in a blind with a bow or a crossbow or a recurve and wait the birds out, try to call them in. That style of hunting is not conducive to run and gun and going looking for the birds. So I realized I put myself at a little bit of a disadvantage there, and I stayed on the same property. I did not jump around the area. So, okay, I got what I was asking for. But it was a very interesting season, and I just did not have the interaction with the birds. And if I don't hear birds gobble, or if I don't see birds, my confidence goes down, and it was a very weird year. And it wasn't just for me. A lot of turkey hunters I talked to across the state. So now it's time to switch over to walleye fishing on Saginaw Bay. My new Angler Quest, the boat that I'm going to be running this summer, is not supposed to be done for 2 weeks. Thank goodness I got a phone call from Mr. Angler Quest, Brad Dupuy, and he says, Mike, yes, your boat's not going to be done, but we have a prototype from last year's proto. He said it's a little bit rough. It's not, it's It might not be as pretty as some of the other boats, but it'll fish, and you're welcome to use that. And that's what I'm going to do. So hopefully, knocking on wood here, hopefully I will be able to get out and do some fishing this weekend. AnglerQuestPontoons.com, by the way. We'll take a break. When we come back, wrap it all up with Wild Game Chef Dave MInar right here on Outdoor Magazine. Welcome back to Outdoor Magazine. My name is Mike Avery, also known as the Big Guy. Thanks for being along with us this week. Best way to listen is on your local radio station. If not, there's always the podcast available. And regardless of where or when you listen, you can just about be assured that each week's show will be wrapped up with Wild Game Chef Extraordinaire Dave MInar. And guess what? This week is no exception. David, welcome back. How are you?
I'm doing very well, Michael. How are you?
I'm doing great. Could not be better. Hard to believe it's Memorial Weekend already, isn't it?
Oh, my goodness. Yeah, we decided we're going to close on Sunday. We got less help than before, so we're going to try to enjoy the holiday and celebrate those that need it. So.
The help thing is still an issue for everybody, isn't it?
Isn't it? I mean, every restaurant's got, every gas station, everywhere has got help wanted. I've never, ever experienced anything this in my life, but it's all over. It's not just us, so.
Yeah. Well, what about, let's turn our attention here. I mean, turkey season is pretty rough. By the way, I did not get a bird. I didn't even get a shot at a bird this year. How about you?
Nothing.
Yeah.
I didn't even see. I seen two. I was up on the ladder cleaning the martin houses out, and I seen two toms strutting about, I don't know, 400 or 500 yards away out in the field there, and they were gone. And by the time I got down the ladder, they were gone.
All right, so let's not waste our time any more time on turkey recipes. How about a fish recipe?
Well, I've got salmon and foil with dill.
Yeah.
You ever make hobos at home, Mike?
Yep.
Okay, we do too. We've done it with Michigan brand ham, which comes out just great. I've done it with venison burgers and walleye. So anyway, you're going to need a barbecue for this, or you can put it in the oven too if you like. And you can make these in advance, cool everything down. When you package it up, then you could put it in a cooler and take it to camp or to the site where you're having any kind of a function for the holidays. It's great. So you need about 8 to 10 ounces of boneless, skinless salmon per person, about a medium-sized potato per person, between 1 and 2 carrots per person, depending on the size of them, a medium onion per, a stalk of celery per. Cut the stuff on the bias, so it kind of has a little bit more eye appeal. I like to use 1 to 2 cloves of garlic. Red pepper would be great in this dish also. And I like edible pea pods in here. You clean them off, take that little string off, pull the end off, about 6 or 8 per person. And I use a fresh sprig of dill per salmon steak or salmon fillet. Fresh black pepper to taste, a little sea salt to taste, a couple 2 to 4 pats of butter per package of this heavy-duty foil. You got to use the heavy foil because when you move these around on the barbecue, you don't want them breaking open and spilling the juice. And depending on how hot your barbecue is, I like to put it on about medium. So you're going to slice the vegetables kind of thin, medium thin, And what I like to do is I boil some of these separate. The potatoes aren't going to take very long at all because they're sliced thin. You want to cook them just till they're al dente, just almost done. And then the celery, carrots, onion, pea pods, red pepper slices, you can cook them together or keep them separate. But what I do is after we got them all done, we save that liquid. You want just enough water to cover everything. And mix that stuff up real good because you're going to divide these up in different packages. So this is about 4 portions, what we're going to talk about now. So if you're going to take these at a later date, you don't want to put hot stuff together. So you're going to let everything cool down and then package it up. So in a nice large piece of foil to hold all of these vegetables and salmon, I like to put the heartier vegetables on the bottom and maybe the potatoes near the top. And you put the salmon steak or fillet on the top of that. Put some pats of the butter on each one. Sprinkle a little bit of sea salt and grate some black pepper all over everything as you're making the layers. So this is a pretty layered dish. So what you're going to do is have a large piece of foil because you're going to put everything in the middle. And the two ends you're going to put on the top. Make sure you put some water or the stock in the bottom of it, maybe 1 or 2 tablespoons or a little more, maybe. So, and then what you do is you fold it up, crimp it, put the ends in also, crimp them up. You want to make a nice, tight package here. In the barbecue or in the oven, it's only going to take about 12 to 15 minutes because the fish will be done, and that's why you're parboiling all of these vegetables so that everything comes done at the same time. So you're not going to have dried out fish and hard vegetables. So about 10 to 15 minutes, depending on how big the pieces of fish are, because you've got almost all of your vegetables cooked just to al dente, and that's only going to take another 10 or 15 minutes. And like I said, we've made this with Michigan brand hams, walleye, venison burger. And the thing is, you could just open this up, uncrimp it, and eat it right out of the foil. So you don't have the dishes to do. No
it sounds wonderful. And a great summertime dish, too, Dave.
It is. We do it all the time with different everything.
All right, my friend. That's a great recipe. We'll talk to you next time. Wild Game Chef Extraordinaire Dave MInar, a big part of the Outdoor Magazine show, as are you. Because if you weren't listening, there'd be no reason to do this show. Charlie's throngs of supporting fans would not be here cheering him on. And I would have to find something else to do. And I'm too old. I don't want to do something else. So I appreciate the fact that you're listening. My website, MikeAveryOutdoors.com, and the email address, Mike@MikeAveryOutdoors.com.